Good morning, everybody. Economic Ninja here. I want to talk today about inflation and what's going on with the newest stories that prices climbing at the fastest pace since 1982, but it could have been worse. But I want to explain something first before I do that. And this is going to be an overview for many. For some people, they might not understand this, okay? But I have to explain this. The Federal Reserve, because today is nothing like 1980 to 1982. The Federal Reserve is a private institution. It is a private central bank. It is not federal, and there are no reserves. Okay, there are no gold reserves or cash reserves. There is nothing there. They have the ability and the right given them by the Congress to print money. They are literally a mini printing press. Not a mini printing press, it's a huge printing press. They are private. They make their money only by loaning money to the government and to people, to other banking institutions. Okay? So, with that being said, they cannot do what Paul Volcker did back in the early 80s and spike interest rates right now. Why? It is because the government and the nations, the people in all of the nations around the world have gotten into, especially America, have gotten into so much debt. They are now complete slaves to the system that if, and remember too, interest rates have never been this low. That's really scary. That's when you know you're at the bottom. It could dip down a little farther, but it can't go much, the rates. That if rates climb just a little bit, everybody would become insolvent. Businesses would close. The government would not be able to bring in enough taxes because there's that fine line. It could go and raise taxes, but you can only raise taxes enough to where you're right about at the edge of where your citizens revolt and overthrow the government, right? Governments understand this because they went to history class too. Ironically, some of them know it better than others because most of us forget things that we learned in high school or college. Boy, I guarantee you I did. But my point being is that this is nothing like the early 80s. And the problem is rates were higher. I'm sorry. Don't you love it when your phone just starts going off and playing a video? The inflation was worse than it is right now in the early 80s. But just, this isn't the end. Inflation is going to get worse. We're already seeing deflation in some sectors because people just absolutely are not going to put their money in frivolous extras right now when they need to pay for necessities, okay? Deflation does not happen all at once. People need to get that out of their mind. Inflation does not start all at once. Not everything goes up. What happens is something goes up, and I'll give you an example. Like the cost of fuel. Oil could go up because of a problem from country to country, geopolitical threat. Then that raises the price of the gasoline. Then that raises the prices of, let's say, some of your products, like your food in the store, because they have to say if fuel gets so expensive, well, we have to offset those costs. My point being is inflation starts somewhere and it creeps through the system. We're about to experience massive inflation, a very heavy inflation. Then we're going to have pieces of the economy start to fall into deflation, all right? And where it starts, and I've said this many times before, is the things that people don't need. I'll give you an example. To me, you don't need a flat screen TV, all right? Now, you're seeing them come down in price sometimes. Sometimes they go through waves where they get really cheap, they get more expensive. Like right now, it's an interesting story because of the supply chain. But all in all, you don't need a flat screen TV, which means you will see segments like that start to fall first. Really low-hanging fruit in the deflation category is subscription-based services like Netflix, Pandora, XM radio, things like that. Those are the first things that people start to cut out of their budgets and their lives because they need to focus that money on, this phone's got a, oh my goodness. These phones, I'm telling you, Don't you guys know I'm like doing something? All right, let's just turn this off. Sorry. My point being is that, and I'm going to link this story below. I'm not even going to really read anything from it. I'm going to link it below so you guys can look at it. But what happens is deflation starts to pick up in one sector, and then another sector, they stop, you'll cancel your Netflix, you'll cancel your XM radio. Then all of a sudden you're not buying big screen TVs. And what happens to deflation? That deflation starts to get worse and worse and worse. It's going to spill over eventually into real estate. Real estate is too expensive for the common person to buy. Now, we have something that's even worse, and that is institutions buying real estate at breakneck paces, and they can lose money. But this is the other thing that people aren't paying attention to. I'm going to leave you with this. What happens? These pension funds, people think that there's some superhero, that you can't stop them. That Blackstone and BlackRock are just going to keep buying all the real estate. But I want you to remember one thing. Where do they get their money? And most of their money is brought in weekly or monthly by people's paychecks. And the end of every big economic cycle is when unemployment starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I get it right now. We're printing money to deal with the unemployment situation, but there is a day where that will stop. Remember, this isn't forever. So I highly suggest people start to prepare, start to get out of debt. Don't get into new debt. Build a financial arc like a government does. What are they doing? They're buying gold. People buy gold and silver. There are some countries that are buying Bitcoin. Be like them. Build a financial base, because this is not going to last forever. And if for some reason the bond market starts to crack and interest rates are forced up, and that won't happen right away, there will be a knee-jerk reaction by the Federal Reserve, and trust me, it won't end well, because it's going to lead to massive, you think printing right now is on a big scale? Money printing it'll be like Jerome Powell saying, hey, hold my beer, watch this. Because just like Ben Bernanke famously said, he goes, we can't do much, and this is just a rough quote, but the one thing we can deal with is deflation, because we can print money to stop deflation. And I can tell you right now, that will lead to hyperinflation. And I want you guys to be ready for it. I want you to be able to not just survive, I want you to thrive. Just like countries, so many times before this has happened, before this country existed, people would take gold coins and they would buy real estate, because they would be real estate would be decimated and the price of gold would rise. All right, guys, I hope you got something out of this. For those of you that never knew that the central bank, the Federal Reserve, was private, I challenge you to go Google it. Check it out, guys. By the way, if you could hit the like, if you guys have been watching these videos, and tap the subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. The Economic Ninja is out.